Hello, fantasy fans. It's your best friend, Cam Stewart, here with the weekly Wednesday running back preview for HotRoster. And get ready for some fun. Our first buy-heavy week is upon us. The Ravens, Rams, Dolphins, Giants, Steelers, and 49ers are all on the bye, meaning fantasy owners are going to be without Terrence West, Todd Gurley, the red-hot scorching Jay Ajayi, Rashad Jennings, Le'Veon Bell, and the often-injured Carlos Hyde. Where are we going to turn this week? How about Christine Michael? The Seahawks running back faces the Saints, and they've given up the most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs in standard scoring leagues, including 12 touchdowns over 7 games and a 4.4 yards per carry average. But here's an interesting twist. The Saints have allowed only one 100-yard rusher all season, and that's the Falcons' Devontae Freeman in Week 3. And to further complicate things, Michael has only one 100-yard game this season, and it came against the lowly 49ers. However, call me crazy, but I see big things coming for Michael in Week 8. He's going to be motivated coming off Seattle's stinker against the Cardinals. He's averaging 4.2 yards per carry despite having that one big game. If you want something a little more safe, how does Jacquizz Rodgers sound? The Buccaneers are matched up against the Raiders. Oakland, they've given up 4 90-plus yard games to opposing backs this season. They're also allowing opposing running backs 5.1 yards per carry, and they've only given up 7 scores to running backs this season. But those yards are eventually going to put some more runners into the end zone, and Rodgers is hot right now. 255 rushing yards in his past 2 games. The Falcons and Chargers have allowed 60 or more receiving yards per game to opposing backs, and they have 2 very different matchups. The Falcons facing the Packers, who have caused chaos in fantasy by putting wide receiver Ty Montgomery into the backfield. So you know what? We're calling him a running back here on the show. I expect Montgomery to put up another huge fantasy game in Week 8. He's coming off back-to-back 10-catch games and has totaled 230 yards in his past 2 games combined. We're obviously fans here, especially with the matchup. Meanwhile, the Chargers play the Broncos, and we've seen that Denver backfield go from a solid one-back system to a complete timeshare between C.J. Anderson and Devontae Booker. Anderson has 24 targets over 7 games, while Booker has just 13. So all signs point to Anderson having the better game. But that doesn't necessarily mean Booker won't be bad. These 2 backs, they've shown they can both coexist in both real and the fantasy football world. But if you find yourself having to choose between the 2, I gotta go with C.J. Anderson. And speaking of backs who've coexisted well together this season, Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman of the Falcons, these guys have done a great job. But this week should be different. Adam Schefter reporting that Coleman is likely going to be out for Week 8 against the Packers. So it means it's go time for Freeman, right? Wrong! I'm concerned. The Packers haven't allowed a rushing TD since Week 1. They've contained running backs to under 50 yards rushing 4 times this season, and limiting their pass-catching abilities by giving up less than 30 yards receiving per game, too. These are all strong reasons to be worried about Freeman, so despite the volume, I'm going to pass on him this week on HotRoster. Another back I'm concerned for this week is the Saints' Mark Ingram. The former Heisman winner is yet to top 80 yards rushing in a game this season, and this week, he draws the Seahawks. Similar to Freeman, the volume's going to be there for Ingram. The question remains, what's this guy going to do with it? Ingram is only averaging 3.9 yards per carry, and he faces a Seattle defense that has allowed only 2 100 rushers all season long. Plus, the Hawks D has held running backs to less than 60 yards rushing 4 times this season. If Ingram can't get the yards and can't score against Seattle's tough run D, where are his points going to come from? That's my concern, and that's why I'm picking against him on HotRoster. And my final sit of the week has to be the Buffalo Bills backfield of LaShawn McCoy and Mike Gillislee. For starters, who knows what backfield is going to shape up? We saw McCoy play last week when he shouldn't have, and then we saw Mike Gillislee get only 5 carries the same game. The Bills' backfield is an absolute mess right now, given Shady's uncertain status. And to make matters worse, the Bills are headed for a date with the Patriots. That doesn't bode well for any running back. The Pats haven't allowed a touchdown to opposing backs since Week 4, and they haven't allowed any scores on the ground since Week 2. Even the great Le'Veon Bell couldn't find the end zone against those guys. So what makes you think Gillislee's going to be any different or a banged-up Shady McCoy? That's why I'm sitting both of those guys. And for the love of God, Rex Ryan, if the guy's hurt, do the right thing, use some common sense, and sit McCoy. Thanks for nothing, Rexy. And that's it for today, my fantasy friends. Sorry, that guy put me in orbit last week. Make sure you join us tomorrow when we forecast how wide receivers are going to do. And make sure you go to HotRoster.com and check out the app. Download it, give it a try. It's like no other fantasy game you've played. And then check out HotRoster today with me and the human encyclopedia Gary and Thorne every weekday at 4:30 Eastern, only on the Fantasy Sports Network. For HotRoster now, I'm Cam Stewart, and I will see you on the virtual gridiron.